Welcome to the Eclectic Gamers Podcast. Today is Sunday, January 14th. This is episode 53. I am Tony.
And I am Dennis.
And we're going to be talking to you about the glory that is pinball and the joy and pain that is video games.
Yes, but first, what do we always do? Introductions.
Yay, it's introduction time.
So it's time to get caught up. What's been happening since our last episode, which was in 2017. So this is our first of the new year.
It's the first episode of the year. I have been mainly playing games I've already talked about. I've been playing a lot of Breath of the Wild. I've been playing a lot of
Cold Waters.
No, actually, I haven't been playing Cold Waters. I've been playing Rule the Waves.
Okay.
Rule the Waves, which is the spreadsheet game.
On the high seas.
My spreadsheets on the high seas, where I've got to keep my budget balanced and
yes,
design and build my navy and all that stuff while staying within budget.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about it on the real gaming level. I've moved on in my listening of audiobooks to the point where I'm like burning through the Dresden Files books.
Okay, I'm familiar with them.
Have been great fun. The voice, the narration is done by James Marsters.
Okay,
who you might recognize as Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Except for he doesn't use his Spike voice because James Marsters is an American and that whole British punky thing. Yeah. That was a affectation. And there's a couple characters that you can hear it in it with a couple of his characters, but it's not like the voice he uses standardly. And he does a really good job. He is really, really good with voices. In addition to that, I'm not decided yet. I'm debating. We are 33 days from Planet Comic-Con here in Kansas City. I'm thinking about going.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a lot of good people there some of whom I would like to see, and I'd kind of like to. I haven't been to a Comic-Con in years, so I'm debating it. We're gonna see what happens. I think I might actually have the phone that weekend, so it might not work. That's what happened last year,
right?
And the only other thing is a promotion I've been waiting on at work finally came through. I hit my requirements to get a promotion. So as of tomorrow, officially, it will take place. So,
well, congratulations.
Thank you. And how have you been doing lately?
Oh, fine. It's been busy. I did not get a promotion. I don't think anyone there are no promotions to be had, really. We're so small. But they did give us a cost of living adjustment, which we did not get last year. I was a bit surprised because we're still underwater. But we're on a path to basically, well, it's not really that interesting. So we lost a contract that we kind of relied on probably too much for a really long period of time. And so we're in this process of transitioning to not relying on such subsidization. And so we did have to scale back on some staff and stuff. So my duties have changed. I'm doing a lot more repetitive sort of lower tier work now because we have no support staff anymore.
So you are now Secretary Dennis.
I do secretarial functions in part, yes.
But if you say it right, you get to pull that whole big evil empire thing. I mean, your Secretary Dennis.
Yes.
There you go.
It's stiff. Maybe I can master that eventually, but so far, no. So with not filling the post, those duties have been split apart across a variety of staff members. I mean, the executive director is opening the mail at this point. So, because we have we have procedures on how mail is processed. So he's doing the mail.
Wow, you have procedures on how mail is processed.
We do. It's all part of our manual and how, because we're subject to annual audits, as your employer is as well. So there are certain things that need to be adhered to. And so the mail needs to be processed. It needs to be stamped by the date it's, that's the main part. It's not it sounds fancier when you say the mail must be processed, but it's really more like the mail must be stamped with a date stamp, not just a postage stamp.
So you have to actually stamp the date on. We received it on click the 14th, the 15th.
On the actual documentation, not on the envelope. So it's just stuff like, so there's a lot of payment stuff. So since I was on vacation during our last record, I came back and no one knows how to print checks there's no one left who knows how except me. So
yes,
they didn't
because
print
it's 2018.
Yes.
Checks are.
They found a checkbook and they wrote hand checks to get
seriously.
by. Yes.
I'm amazed they found a checkbook. Oh. No, I mean, I have a checkbook, and I do write checks. Mm-hmm. I write a single check a month.
Me too.
As I have for the last 7 years. I've written a single check a month, and that is all I do. And that's just because my landlords don't have a way for me to do it any other way. My choice is to either go get a money order or write a check, and it's cheaper to write the check. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, a good choice. So anyway, that's been what's going on at work. Game wise, obviously, there's a lot to talk about, especially in the video game segment this time, because as I said last time, I would use this time to recap all the games I had played. The only real changes since then, because in the last week in particular, I have not done much. I have finished Quantum Break, and I have started South Park Fractured Butthole. So that's really the only change on that front. Then from the last episode, yes, I just, the way I get through those South Park names is that one in particular is I just don't think about it.
I was just thinking you broke your quantum and now you're fracturing your butthole.
Yep.
So.
I'm all screwed up. It's bad. It's been a rough new year. And so speaking of rough, I apparently made a couple of mistakes on the last episode. So corrections, as I like to do in the intro. I usually open with them, but I've tried to, hide them deeper within the 6-minute mark of the show.
So what you're saying is we need to get a correction music, that we play correction music and then we do corrections?
No, I've listened to a couple podcasts that do that, and then they try and make words to the correction song, and then 30 minutes later, they still haven't said anything.
Well, that's how you get past it, and you're like, oh, we're out of time. We got to close it up. Thanks, everybody.
I mean, I don't know. What if we break the 100,000 listeners an episode mark? We can do that. That's what we'll do. We get to their level, we can do that.
So if we get to the this is our job level,
yes. So for those that don't know, we are referencing the Giant Bombcast and Giant Beastcast, which I tried to listen to, and they just frustrated me too much with their weird tangents. But they do have corrections music.
Yes.
So, and it is catchy.
It is very catchy.
Our corrections there were two of them. The first was when we were doing our recap of the pinball section. Actually, both of the corrections are about that section. The first one is when I talked about Thunderbirds. I didn't say the right company. The company's name is Homepin, but during that episode, I called it Hankin. They have the license to produce Hankin arcades. Hankin was an Australian company back in the day. They did pinball and they did arcade games. So Homepin has been manufacturing cocktail arcade cabinets, I know, that are Hankin, official Hankin ones. So I got the names mixed up because they both start with H.
Because they both start with H. They're both almost the exact same, and they're both referring to the exact same thing.
Essentially. But it doesn't say Hankin. Thunderbirds is not a Hankin licensed product. It is just a Homepin product. So, anyways,
12 lashes.
Yes. Yes, they've been meted out. So there was that. And then the other correction is, and this one was in my view, much bigger issue. I totally left off Multimorphic.
I felt so bad when you told me about this, because as soon as you told me, it hit me, and I'm like, oh my God, we did.
Well, and there was really absolutely no excuse, because they had a huge year because they finally shipped product.
They had such a huge year, and we
interviewed Jerry earlier in the year.
That's why when you told me that, I was just like my gut dropped out. I'm like, oh no, how did we manage that?
Well, and this is what happens when I get cute. And when I was writing up the outline, instead of listing all the manufacturers alphabetically like I normally would, I thought, oh, well, no, let me try and put them in like a flow order so we don't just like put in a bad news all in one huge blob. And so it's sort of like, okay, we need to put some space between things like Heighway and Dutch and Skip B. They weren't all in sequence. I needed I felt I needed to, space those out. And so I did not, I should have constructed the list alphabetically and then shuffled them.
Yeah.
But I did not do that. And instead I just relied on my memory, just like, oh yeah, and this one and this one and this one. I mean, we had a non-manufacturer like Deep Root in.
I know. So, it was so bad.
So we apologize for that. And we are going to give the P3 system its due in our pinball segment this time. Okay, so beyond that, a little bit of local news. Apparently I could have known this in time for the last episode, but I didn't look. Tapcade, North Kansas City, closed. They shut down. So they were running a monthly tournament. I only went to the first one, because that was worth fake Missouri points, and I don't generally bother playing for Missouri points. If I'm going for Whoppers, I only want Kansas Whoppers. Because I'll never earn enough Missouri ones. And anyway, so that was too bad because they had really good, well-maintained machines. And they were all on 50 cents at that location, all the machines were. So that's, there's still Tapcade in the area.
I was going to say, isn't there like a Tapcade downtown, I think?
Yes, and it's open. It has Tapcade North Kansas City didn't have a kitchen. Or at least they didn't when I went. So you could get goldfish crackers, but there wasn't really I don't know if it was easy to deliver food or what, but it was very much a sort of a bar. And I don't know.
So it's kind of like 403 where.
Yeah, but I mean, they didn't even have hot dogs.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It didn't last, at least for the time being, but.
And also locally, we have a new pinball shop that's opened up locally.
That's right.
Solid State Pinball.
Yes, our very own Nick Greenup, who we know from competitive play.
Mm-hmm.
He maintains some of the machines en route at the 403 Club. So that's great. So congratulations to Nick. We'll put a link in the show notes so people can check that.
I haven't had a chance to get up there and check it out. It's up near 403,
mm-hmm.
and I didn't even get to the first term of the year this year at 403 because I was on call. You know what? I've been on call a lot lately.
Yeah. I didn't get, normally we would report, how we did at the, briefly, we'd say how we did at the 403 Club.
I wasn't last.
Well, that was the Chiefs playoff game that day, and they made the decision to push back the start time 2 hours, and no, I'm not starting at 7. So, because then I'm not getting back until probably 10. So it's just even on a Saturday, I just wasn't going to do it. So.
Yeah, no, I understand.
So, so a couple other announcements kind of in our transition element before we move right into the pinball segment. The first is T-shirts. We're getting more T-shirts. They're going to be orange T-shirts this time with lime green lettering. Tony's wife assures us that they look very sharp.
Yes, she says they look good. I rely on her for all of my clothing choices where I make somebody pick them out because otherwise I just look terrible. So if I look bad, it's not my wife's fault.
Right. Good.
And if I look good, it is my wife. It is my.
It is your wife's fault.
Yeah.
But in a positive way. It's a positive fault.
She has stopped me walking out the door to go to functions before with the simple phrase, "I'm not letting you go out like that. Go change."
I can actually hear those words if I think about it. I can actually hear the tone and everything.
I mean, I had some friends who came and picked me up so I could go to the, I went to see Gabriel Iglesias, the comedian, and they were in the driveway picking me up and my wife was like, no, go change. As I was heading for the door.
So, as we often do, because we don't sell our shirts, we do give them away, though. So we're running a giveaway. We're doing it a little more promotionally oriented than the last giveaway was. So there will be a link in the show notes. There's a form you can fill out, or you can send us an email if you don't want to fill out the form. And the instructions on how to email are, if you click on the link to the form, it'll tell you. It has all the instructions. But that will give you a chance to win a shirt. And in addition, you can get some additional entries for following us on Facebook, following us on Twitter, following us on Instagram, and leaving a review on iTunes. Which, I do need a note for people about iTunes. It's leave a review, not leave a rating. Ratings are when you give stars, 1 to 5 stars. Reviews are when you actually write words. And the reason why ratings are helpful for the search algorithms as well, and I would love to give shirts for ratings. The problem is I can't pull a list of iTunes user handles on anything but reviews. So if you left a star and you submitted, go in and actually leave a review. But we'll run that until the following Friday. I think that's the 26th. The exact deadline is listed in the rules. And so you can get up to 5 chances to win, 1 shirt per person. So once you're done, we'll use random.org and we'll sort through that. I don't know exactly how many we'll give out, other than I guarantee it will be at least 4. We'll do at least 4. I'll commit to that. And U.S. shipping only. So you have a couple options. You can either be a U.S. resident and ask us to ship it to a U.S. address, or doesn't matter where you are. If you are going to the Texas Pinball Festival, you can let us know that, and we will arrange, and I will give it to you at Texas. So anyone, Canadians or whatever, if you want one, feel free to do it that way, and we'll just arrange to meet out by the registration table or something and hook you up. So it's not a big deal, but we like to do it as a thank you for people who tolerate listening to us. And that's something that I tend to get shirts and badges anyway, because I like to offer them to all the guest hosts as sort of a thank you for actually working around our schedules and recording with us. So it's time yet again to do another order. So that's why we're doing it. And the final thing is, again, technically our 1-year anniversary will be the next episode. However, we are planning to have our 2-year. Thank you. Tony's he's doing the sign language, letting me know that I can't count, and that's correct. That's right.
I think you did that last episode too. You talked about our upcoming.
I did. I caught it last time though and corrected myself.
The only reason that it comes to mind is that we're coming up on our third Texas.
Yes.
That's basically how it keeps.
You
coming
keep track
to
of them in Texas terms. Yeah, that's a good way to count it. So. Yeah, we'll be starting our 3rd year of podcasting. And so, we go ahead and we just spend a little bit of time giving you guys some analytics for the few that might possibly care, a little bit of the behind the curtain stuff. So in terms of just looking at 2017 itself, overall, we did see that our listener base has grown. It went up throughout the year, obviously higher than 2016, though the growth is less dramatic than it was in 2016. So we went up, but not by the same percentage. And so the only major change we did with the podcast this year is, and I forget what month or episode we did it in, but we formally dropped the regular recurring tabletop segment and went to just recurring pinball and video games. That's really the only major change we had.
That was in, I think it was late April, early May, I think. And it was just because we weren't playing enough board games. I'm almost always busy on the local board game nights, so I don't get to go to them anymore like I used to. And other than our trek once or twice a year to a convention somewhere to play games, we're not doing a lot. I utterly failed at my plan to try and put together an ongoing pen and paper RPG game this last year. I might try again this year. I've got ideas for D&D and Star Wars and Planet Mercenary. I'm just trying to figure out what would work best.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the shift up. In terms of our episodes and how they performed, the best episode in 2017 from a listener standpoint was number 34. That's the one where we had Bo and Karen's, the Papa Pinburg organizer, famous tutorial maker, mathematician to every game show under the sun. His guest hosting episode was our best performing episode out of all of them this year. Followed by the, to me, infamous Spreadsheets in Space, episode 30. That was our second best performer. That one doesn't surprise me because I kept seeing it popping up in the historic analytics that people just keep going and listening to that one for some reason.
It's because that game is so awesome.
I guess a lot of Excel fans are out there and just listening to it for inspiration. And our third best performing one, which adds the extra sting to the slide on Multimorphic, was the one where we interviewed Jerry. So that's also the one where you spent a lot of the video game segment talking about Nier Automata.
Yeah, that was.
So because some of the audience may have come for the Nier talk. But
Nier was a good game.
Yep. And our worst episodes, because of course we had to have some worst episodes, other than incidentally the year-end review. There were no analytics on it because we released it on the 31st, even though some people did download it that day. The worst one was episode 28. That was the pre-Texas Pinball Festival episode where we talked about what we were expecting. And also it was one where we spent a lot of time on BattleTech and Overwatch PTR changes, which if you listen to Don, formerly of the Link Cable podcast and the Pinball podcast, talking about Overwatch is a killer.
Yeah, there's a reason we've dialed our
we've
Overwatch
scaled it back. We've scaled it back. We know we're not an Overwatch centric pod. Well, we're not supposed to be. So,
and I don't think my next big run into BattleTech is going to happen until the game actually releases at this point. Mm-hmm. Though I might do some video stuff. I've been looking at doing some video stuff for that and a couple other games, but that's not going to talk about it a whole lot.
And second worst episode was number 48. That's the one actually where we wrapped up the System 11 tournament. There wasn't really any highlight stuff there. We talked about Bomber Crew, Wardor, Endless Space 2 was that episode. We also gave a small update on the street level stuff. That was not the main one where we did a deep dive on it. And the third lowest performing was episode 26. So that one had the tabletop section where you talked about an app for tabletop analytics, and we briefly mentioned the pinball showdown, I think was the name of it.
I think that was one of our very last tabletop sections.
Yeah, and that one was a real early episode too, because we talked about Aerosmith and Batman 66 on the pinball side. So those were the worst episodes according to you all. Let's see, top listening countries in order: USA. Followed by Australia, followed by Sweden, followed by Canada, and Germany wraps up the top 5. And the top 5 website sources for listeners were Facebook, followed by our website, followed by Google searching, followed by our thread on Pinside page 1, followed by our thread on Pinside page 2. So now the analytics that SoundCloud puts together on that, incidentally, it's very frustrating. So it just really depends on how a site's organized. So for example, Tilt Forums shows up a lot, but each post shows its own link in the SoundCloud stuff. Whereas it's by page on Pinside, it's by post on Tilt. So you'd have to sit there and add it all up manually. But Tilt Forums gave us a lot of listeners, and Fun with Bonus, which is Steve Bowden's site, gave us a number of listeners outside of the top 5 as well. So we do know that the pinball listeners butter our bread, so to speak, which is why we tend to spend a lot of time on the subject. But that's all I was going to go over on analytics, because I don't think anything else is really very interesting about it to those not actually putting it together. So let's go ahead and transition into pinball, and let's talk about what we should have talked about last time, and that is the year-end review for Multimorphic and their P3 platform. As we noted in our correction, the big news was they shipped games this last year. I'm not sure how many they've shipped. I think they did a batch of 25, and we're working on another batch of 25. I'm not sure if they've gone past 50 or not.
Yeah.
They had a big presence at Texas Pinball Festival where they unveiled some new mini games that were kind of going along with the modules that they already had developed. Lexi Lightspeed's kind of the one traditional showcase game, and then there's they had Cannon Lagoon, and then they've added a few others like tutorial style, the head-to-head play, one head-to-head across the world with the internet.
Yeah.
So they had a lot of features there. I guess, Tony, what are your thoughts on P3? Maybe not so. I mean, obviously, them launching, I would say, means 2017 was their best year.
I would say so. Yeah.
What do you think is in store for them this year in 2018?
I'm going to assume that they're just going that besides continuing production and getting more out there. Like I said, I don't know what kind of orders they've had and how many ones they've gotten out. I wouldn't be surprised to see another big game and maybe some more mini games appear for their systems at like Texas. And I hope they keep doing well. I mean, I've liked their product every time I've done it. I've played with it. I think the whole point of it actually catching on is going to be once they get enough tables and enough stuff out there to make it, to really increase their sales and turn it into something that everybody's going to want.
Right. My understanding is it is expected that at Texas this year, they will announce Cosmic Kart Racing. That might not be the exact name of it, but I think it is. And that one's been talked about for a while as the next Lexi-esque full pinball experience with a module sort of game. So that one's been looked forward to for a long time. Regarding Multimorphic, I think you summarized it very well, where I think that where their challenge lies is on gaining enough consumers to actually adopt the platform and getting more and more tables built so that people will continue to see this as a really good deal.
Yeah.
I mean, because the whole idea, the technology aside, which I think is
amazing.
Right. There's nothing else like it in pinball. No one else is trying to occupy this space. So they're in a really good position regarding that. When everyone else's innovations is how many color changing RGBs and laptop monitors you can sneak into a back box and play field. I mean, this is on a whole nother level. So that's great. My initial concern with the P3 platform was the $10,000 price tag. As pinball prices, traditional pinball prices have increased, as long as that price doesn't increase, they continue to look better and better. Yeah. They're more competitive. I mean, the idea of it, I get the idea. It's like, well, yeah, you're going to pay more up front because of all this tech, but you're going to be able to put in more tables over time. But you don't have more tables yet that anyone really wants. And that's where things like Cosmic Kart Racing, it's great that it's coming out. Is it going to be good?
Right. And that's going to be the primary concerns is how it plays out. And I mean, Lexi's a fun game, but Lexi's also the game that everybody's been testing and playing the P3 with. So it didn't have that special feel, I guess, when the game, when everything launched.
Right. There's no hype around Lexi.
There's no hype around Lexi.
Because everyone's seen it.
Right.
But separate from that, I think the challenge, and this is a challenge for any pinball manufacturer, I think, but the challenge that I feel we saw manifest on Lexi is Lexi's no one's favorite game.
No.
It's just not an A-list game. So
it's nobody's most hated game, I don't think.
I hope not. I think it's a fun game. It shows off the tech pretty well, but I don't love how it shoots. I don't hate how it shoots.
No.
But it's one of those games like if it was en route, would I put money in it? Sure. Would I regret ever having to play it in a tournament? No. Do I want to own it? No, I don't. So that's where you need I don't care if it's a known designer or not. You just need what if Total Nuclear Annihilation had been on the P3 platform sort of thing? And people have been like, holy crap, that gameplay on
I hadn't thought about that.
Just as an example of a game that sort of, to a lot of people, came out of nowhere, but there are people who say it is the game of the year.
Me.
Right? Yeah.
That was me.
Yeah. I can't remember how I voted anymore on it, but it was definitely one of the highlights for me in terms of just gameplay itself. It's a really, really good game. And so they need something like that. The challenge that they have, though, is getting more and more modules, even if they're not the greatest, is another way to make it attractive just because there's a lot of choice. But you have that challenge of who wants to develop for the system. Do they own a system? What's the potential sales? Like if they're getting a share of each module or something, well, if they're less than 100 people, then there's less than 100 modules you could ever possibly sell. You don't want to run into the ET situation where you make more ET Atari cartridges than there were Ataris.
Yeah.
Or so the myth went, at least. I don't know if that was true or not, but that's what everyone thinks to this day. So that's where I think their challenge is at this point. But as long as they can keep getting more games out there, that critical mass becomes more and more viable.
Yeah.
So I think they're in a good position. The nice thing is, much like Homepin, they don't just rely on this to make money. They do the P-Rock system, which is what Total Nuclear Annihilation uses to power its system. All the homebrew stuff, it's either fast pinball or P-Rock. And me not being in that part of the hobby, most of what I've seen is P-Rock.
Yeah.
It seems most people turn to that. So they've got another income stream, so they can build this out. That's how they were able to last as long as they did, I believe. So they can build this out. They don't have to be in a rush on it, but
yeah, it's not something where this is make or break. If it takes a little bit longer, we'll be okay while it takes longer.
Yeah, I think they're in a decent position. It's just they still have some hurdles that most other, versus if they were to have been like Homepin and said, well, let's just launch and make a traditional table, and it will win or lose on the strength of its quality.
Yeah.
Because of the price point would have been more in line with other pinball machines, whereas this is at the upper echelon not SLE in the Stern speak, but we're talking collector's edition pricing.
Yeah, it's definitely up there.
You're at $10K. It's just the
modularity and everything else is. It's like an actual modularity as opposed to that little thing that Heighway tried to do with the swappable play field and all that, where that was just, this is actual modularity.
Yes.
So.
Okay, so we covered that now. There's not a whole lot of pinball news this week. There were a few little happenings I thought we should go ahead and touch on for those that rely on us to learn about what is going on in the hobby. Alien and Heighway Pinball, you just mentioned them. They have shipped more limited edition models out. I've seen some posts, mostly from, maybe entirely from Europeans who are getting their LEs, but issues with them. Yes, it seems that there are still setup issues. I know you're
telling me there's an issue with a Heighway game.
Again, nothing catastrophic, just weird things that people just have the weirdest things, like, oh, these lights don't work, and this came loose, and this hole is wearing out, or some of the news separate from the LE stuff where people were showing in the playfield clear. It sounds like a Stern issue. The playfield clear was lifting off of the machines with less than 100 plays, just lifting out. So, and people were like, should we put Mylar down? All that, again, it's just stuff. It's just stuff. The other thing out of Heighway and Alien was they finally officially released a major code update. The reviews so far, what limited ones I've seen, have been very positive of the code update. I've always heard very good things about the Alien code, and that's what stood out to me when I played it at Texas last year, was I thought it had some clever coding. The issue, though, is people had to download it from the website. You put it on a USB stick, and you put it in. For those that got it to work, it went really fast. Lots of people said that they're taking pictures of Linux boot screens, not finding the device. There's a lot of IT people who are into pinball.
Yeah.
And a number of them are on Pinside. As near as I could tell by the time we went to air, the issue seemed to be how they named the file on their site confuses some operating systems. And so it's like automatically getting decompressed, and it needed to stay in its compression file, but they didn't name it in a way that it would always stay that way. And then the file inside the container file was the same name as the file of the container. It's just a different extension. So people would get mixed up as to which file they were working with. And so people are like, you need to use the 10 megabyte version, not the 16 megabyte version. Well, mine only always says the 16 megabyte version. And then others, it sounded like it wasn't downloading right, and you'd get a corrupted download, which I've been to a few scrub websites where that happens. VP forums, actually, for virtual pinball tables would sometimes do that. In this day and age, come on. You shouldn't have an issue with a corrupt download.
Come on, man. This is 2018.
Yeah, come on.
That download should have taken 4 seconds.
So, yeah, exactly. So it's just like, that or Alien owners as a collective have the worst USB sticks ever. And then you go to Micro Center and buy some more USB flash drives.
Maybe.
Just everyone had bad USB drives that weren't FAT32 formatted. I don't know. It was weird. It was such a weird issue.
They could have like an anti-technology aura, and they just make stuff fail.
Yeah.
Are the people with the USB problems people who also have an inordinate amount of trouble with both their computers and their pinball machines?
Who knows? I didn't do enough research on it. It was so reported by so many people. It's not the USB sticks. It's not. It's Heighway. It's Heighway and how they stored the file. And maybe it relates to how most of the browsers interact with the file once you download it because of its compression format. But anyway, so that's all the news on Alien. Stern Pinball is at CES, Consumer Electronics Show. Or I guess it's done now, but
I would kind of like to go to CES someday.
Yeah, it's interesting. They show off a lot of tech.
Power this year for a while.
I did not hear about that.
And they also had some other issues. I know Samsung. I think it was Samsung. Gosh, I wish I'd remembered the article. I think it was Samsung. Had a robot. Yeah, it utterly failed. I mean, it was like crash and burn, worst thing of the show type thing.
Wow.
Like,
I'll have to read up on that.
Like not understanding commands that the guy was giving it like 4 and 5 times, standing right next to it. So
that's too bad, especially in a world of echo dots and everything.
Yeah.
Anyway, the news out of that, I mean, they had some of their traditional pinball machines there, and what articles I saw that mentioned it, those go over really well. Tech people love pinball.
Oh, yeah.
And they also were showcasing some of that Stern Pinball Arcade VR stuff, which I've already heard pretty positive things about the VR experience.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not buying VR stuff because it's way too expensive and gimmicky. But yet.
There's nothing that makes me want to
There's no killer app.
There's nothing huge yet. But I have interest. But we're not there yet. I don't think we're there yet.
I
have seen where people have done and built their own custom rigs. Mm-hmm. So they can set it on a table. And it's got the buttons and a plunger on it, so they can do that in the VR.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
Yeah, that's kind of awesome.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to just like download it, put it on my cab, and hook it up and actually stand at the cab.
Yeah, now if you could if you already had a virtual pin and it was something that you could rig your VR to it.
Well, let's go ahead and let's cover the second round of our Shame tournament. That's right. We've had some interesting results. Maybe. It's all shameful, so maybe it's not.
I wish I had a bell right now.
I know you. So awesome. I know you do, but you're here at my house, and there are no bells here. So let's go over the round 1 results real quick, and then let's talk about the round 2 matchups. For round 1, Game Show did beat Hardbody with 87% of the vote. That's the widest margin of victory out of any of them, by the way.
That's a pretty good sized margin.
It is.
And not a surprise from everything I've heard about the game.
Sure.
As I recall last year. Well, yeah,
no,
that's right.
Last year.
Technically, it was last year.
You're always right.
I haven't played either of these games, so I skipped this specific voting on this specific one.
Yeah, no. A Game Show I think is fun. WWE beat Rescue 911 with 61.5% of the vote. I've played Rescue 911 virtually, and I've played WWE really, and I don't agree with this, but...
Well, I've not played 911, I don't think. I might have.
It was a Season 5 game in Pinball Arcade, by the way.
I might have. I don't know. I don't remember.
Genie beat Time Fantasy with 56% of the vote. Actually, Nick, with the Solid State Pinball Supply, he contacted me about Time Fantasy saying, I guess he has one.
Really?
Yeah, I think so, because he's like, or at least he felt I should play it. He was familiar with it. And I was like, I voted Genie too late. But he says it's fun. So it's got to join the list of games I had not before heard of, but now must try.
Or on your list of must plays.
Yep, games
it's time to start game hunting.
Sure. I guess so. Always watching for projects. I thought we'd have seen more sale games now that Christmas is over of people who bought too much Christmas stuff and need to unload.
Yeah.
But I'm not seeing much yet, but maybe the credit card bills haven't come.
I've seen a couple games for sale since the turn of the
Oh yeah, I've seen
that made me wish I had a stack of cash sitting in a wallet somewhere.
Yeah.
But
Genesis beat Roller Coaster Tycoon with 56.5%.
Wasn't surprised.
Yeah, I'm not either. Sorry, Don. I know Don, back when he guest hosted the first time, mentioned Roller Coaster Tycoon was a kind of lesser known game he really liked.
Yeah.
But Genesis is interesting. I have played both of these. Again, Genesis only virtually. Big Buck Hunter, it beat El Toro with 82.6%. I have not played Big Buck or El Toro, so I didn't vote in this.
Same.
But given El Toro's reputation alone, I am in no way surprised. No way surprised. Dolly Parton did beat Silver Slugger.
I'm kind of surprised by that.
I'm not, but only because, well, I have not played Dolly Parton to my knowledge. I think more people have played Dolly Parton than Silver Slugger. So a lot of people probably don't know Silver Slugger. And
I can see that.
And I am curious now to try Dolly Parton. Maybe it is better. I don't know. I do enjoy Silver Slugger. I like the shots. I think they feel good. And then Sharky Shootout did beat Vegas with 70.8% of the vote. And this doesn't surprise me. Well, it's one of those cases where they actually made fewer Sharkies than they did than Gottlieb did of Vegas, but it's like no one has any familiarity with any street level pin other than hoops. So I'm not surprised that Vegas didn't fare as well.
I just think people voted for Dolly Parton because of the backlash.
It wouldn't surprise me, but they're allowed to vote for any reason whatsoever that they want. It's interesting. Yes. It's an interesting backlash. So the round 2 matchups. It's going to be the Bally Game Show versus WWE. I know you haven't played Game Show.
Right.
I know you've played WWE. Are you going to vote on it?
I think I will. I'm going to vote against WWE.
Okay. Having played both, I agree that Game Show is the more enjoyable game. South Park will be, I didn't mention that from round one. Apparently I can't read and I skipped it incidentally. South Park did win. Obviously it beat Raven with 53.8%.
I think Raven's the better game.
I do too. I think it comes down to backlash, a reverse backlash situation.
Yeah.
Where people just think that backlash is corny because it is. But,
yeah, it's terrible.
But I think the layout's okay. And South Park's boring to play. But anyway, South Park's going to be up against Genie. These are both really boring games.
It is the shame list.
It is, but I wanted people to pick better shame games. I'm disappointed. Basically, I'm disappointed.
To pick shame games that were fun.
I'm disappointed.
And excellent.
I don't know which one I'm going to pick here. Genie's whole left half is so boring. South Park is shoot toilet all day boring.
But it's shoot toilet all day with terrible callouts.
Yeah, that's a thing. I'll probably go Genie just because it's okay to listen to.
Yeah.
Genesis is going to be up against the Big Buck Hunter Pro game. I really wish I had played Big Buck Hunter so I could say something on it. I think Genesis is okay though, having played it as many times as I have virtually. So I do lean that way. And then Dolly Parton versus Sharkies, I would go Sharkies.
Well, yeah, Sharkies is a great game.
I like Sharkies. So, and I don't know Dolly Parton. So that's going to be round 2 of the matchups. Link in the show notes to go and vote in that round. And the last thing I thought I'd go ahead and just stick here in the pinball segment is 2 of my games are down right now, actually, which is unfortunate, but I'm waiting for parts still.
You have to
waiting
learn
for
to
parts.
be gentle.
One of them was probably me being a little too violent. And that was because it was the start of the year. I went to change batteries. I only have 2 pinball machines that I need to change out the alkaline batteries in, Jurassic Park and Superman.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Jurassic Park, they did not want to let them batteries go. The container module that was installed on it was just holding on too tight. And when I got them out, I think I broke a connection loose because putting in the new batteries, the system no longer remembers the settings every time it thinks that I have put in new batteries or that there are more likely no batteries.
There's no batteries.
So rather than taking off that board and soldering that, I'm just going to put in an NVRAM chip and be done with it.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any of that size, so I'm still waiting for those to come. So it's not much of a flaw, but rather than fix that, I might as well just make no more battery on it. I can't do that with Superman. They don't have an NVRAM compatible with those boards yet. But Superman's fine. The other game that's down is... No, Superman's not.
I was going to say.
It's not related to the batteries, though. All right. Superman I've chosen to take down because it's always, on occasion, had squirrely scoring.
Mm-hmm.
There's a kick-out hole in the game. And sometimes, I always noticed when I got it, on occasion, the game would get confused. And I thought maybe it was a software thing. Where the ball would go in, and even though it's only lit for 5,000, it gives 10,000. And sometimes but now it very consistently is like 10,000 for 5, 20,000 for 10, 2 extra balls when it's an extra ball. And I'm not supposed to get 2 extra balls. It doesn't remember the 2. Problem. It doesn't remember the 2, but I hear it play through the cycle twice. The connection on the board, I can tell some of those pins are bent.
Yeah.
I think in theory, it's not I think they're straight enough. I think that there's probably some solder that needs to be reflowed, but I'm ordered new pins just to change out the whole pin set rather than try and straighten all that crap out. So anyway, I'm waiting for my pins to come.
Okay.
Because they're coming from China.
Of course. On the slow boat.
With my NVRAM.
On the slow boat.
So yes, they're all on the slow boat. So I think by early
order
February.
American. Why do you hate America?
I don't know. I haven't decided yet. And so, because I like to save money because I'm cheap. So that's going on with that. I had another drop target break on Sharkies. This time the bottom of it broke. And so where there's a plate that gets lifted up to reset all those drop targets. So the target would go and fly up and it'd be like 3 times higher than any mortal drop target should ever be. And then it was out of its channel so it wouldn't fall back down. And apparently they get very brittle with age. I should have changed them all. Did you do
it this time?
No, because I didn't think about it yet. I'm cheap. I've got a bag full of, I have enough to do the whole thing.
Okay. Yeah. No.
You
have enough to do it. We're just gonna break it.
All right.
I'm gonna rip one at a time. It's gonna break it. There's no reason.
I
understand. There's no reason.
No, you don't understand because there are decals on these stupid little things, and I have the padded decals and I have a second set, but they're like $25, which is stupid for decals, but that's how much people charge because they like to rip pinball people off. And I have to, so I reuse the old ones. And what I have to do is I have to take a freaking laser. I take a laser and I just blast everything. No, I take a razor blade and I cut it as thin as I can, lose as little bit of the foam as I can, and then move them over. And I have to super glue them. And I didn't want to wait for all that many and cut that many. I was trying to watch Overwatch League, but we can't talk about Overwatch because Don will get mad. So it was a mess. And it took an hour just to do the one and take it all out because I have to pull like 30 screws to get that bank out. But if I have to do it again, they're all going. I'm changing them all. So we have to break one more. That's the rule. There are still 3 old ones, maybe 4. Let's see. Widow Target is new. The 1 is new. The 2 broke. It's new. The 7 now broke. It's now new. So I guess 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 4. So I've done half of them.
You've done half of them, which means you've taken it all apart that many times when you could have just sat down and done it once.
The Widow Target is on a separate control thing, so you don't get to count that.
Oh, okay. So instead of taking it apart,
I've taken it off 3 times.
So 3 times you've taken the whole thing apart.
There will only be a 4th, maybe the last. Who knows? When you look at them from the top, they look good because I cleaned them. You can't tell. It's only underneath you can see they're yellowing and the chips, and you'll be like, "Why didn't he do it?" And I'm like, because just trust it. So anyway, I think that's it for the pinball segment. So let's go on over into video games. You have a Nintendo Switch. Wasn't there a big Nintendo event?
I won't go big.
Wasn't there a mini Nintendo event?
Nintendo had a mini event. There's been rumors floating since late last month that sometime in the middle of January there would be a Nintendo Direct, which is how Nintendo does their announcements now. They do their own little Direct thing instead of doing like E3.
Why do they think why are they too good for everyone else?
Because they're Nintendo.
Okay. Yeah, Sega had that attitude once too. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, and that's the same general thing that Sony does now. And
Sony's at E3.
Well, Nintendo's at E3 also.
No, they never have an official booth at E3.
They had a booth last year.
Their show is never a part. They do the Treehouse special,
right? That's
Disney Channel thing.
They don't do the big where they take.
But Sony does.
Sony does, yeah, that's true. EA didn't last year.
Yeah, but EA is not a manufacturer.
No, that's right.
Of course I'm right. I'm just telling you,
that's
Nintendo.
What I'm saying is,
Nintendo's
like
acting
we talked
weird.
last year with E3.
Yeah.
E3's starting to lose its
Poor
importance.
E3. Poor E3.
But yeah, no, Nintendo does their directs several times a year where they do it all online or in some place and stream online. And this is kind of what they call a mini direct. It was unannounced. There was rumored, but it was unannounced. They didn't make a big announcement. We're having a direct on this. No, it was just, they kind of just dropped it. And it's not anything big. They're not listing any main games. This isn't talking about the Metroid that they know is coming and everyone's expecting to hear more about sometime this year. It's not talking about the oft dreamed of major console version of a mainline Pokemon game, which may or may not ever happen. It's not talking about like an Animal Crossing. This little mini direct was literally nothing but like DLC and ports.
Okay.
So
anything cool?
It depends upon what you think is cool. It's includes things like the remastered Dark Souls, which seems to be the biggest thing that was part of it as far as I can tell game-wise. And now the remastered Dark Souls is coming out on Xbox and PC. It's coming out on everything.
Why? That game's not good.
I don't know. I've never played any of the Dark Souls
I thought
games.
You owned it.
No.
Huh. Okay. We should have an episode. I was going to say we should have an episode where I make fun of Dark Souls and how it's so overrated. Overrated game of last generation, Dark Souls easily.
Yeah, I've never played any of the Dark Souls games.
You might like it.
Probably not. I hear it's like hard and silly.
It's hard because it's broken. That's the part that makes it stink. It's in a lot of ways poorly programmed. And some people love it because there's no difficulty setting. And it makes them feel like big boys that they won it. So I had to go and get every achievement in that game on the Xbox 360 to prove that my dislike of it is in no way related to inability to play. I know how to play games. especially poorly programmed piles of junk like that. Holy cow. Does it have a fan base? So a lot of people would be really high. So
fan base.
It makes sense to remaster it because of its popularity.
Yeah.
And purportedly From Software's not doing any more Dark Souls games. They've had things that look like Dark Souls. They're just not going to call it that. That's what I think
like the one that came out on PlayStation last year, the year before.
Yeah, From Software it's strange. They have a relationship where sometimes they do Sony exclusives and then sometimes they do like this. Dark Souls has always been multi-platform.
Yeah, because I know before Dark Souls was Demon Souls.
Yeah, and that's
which was Sony
only.
exclusive. Yes. And a lot of people were hoping that would be a remaster that appeared instead of the first Dark Souls game.
Sure. But for Nintendo purposes, they never have been on Nintendo before.
No, they haven't. This is another game like Skyrim and this and that have made appearances on the Switch that are very much trying to move a lot of Nintendo's away from just being the Mario, Zelda, Kirby games.
And I think a lot of it is I think it's a good idea.
I do too.
And I think the remaster announcement was a good idea. I think that in the case of these other developers, besides the numbers, the numbers on the Switch make it more attractive than the Wii U was. Of course, the Wii had great numbers as well. I think the difference here is that the Switch has enough power to run these games, but not enough power to run what's coming out in 2017, 2018. So that's why they're only getting this older stuff.
Right.
But hey, it's stuff.
It's stuff.
It's stuff. So that's good. Anything else that out of the mini?
Mario Tennis Aces is coming out. Apparently, there's a lot of people looking forward to this game from what I've read online.
I did like the last Mario Tennis game I played. That was over a decade ago.
Yeah, they're popular games. So there's a port of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze and Kirby Star Allies are coming.
So we're like Kirby.
Yeah, it's core Disney stuff. They're ports of games that have already been out that they're just putting on it. It's okay.
They're getting more content on there, so that's good.
One of the other really big ones that people have been talking about is once again a port. It's a port of an old DS game. It's called The World Ends With You. Extremely large fan base, very popular DS game. I've never played it.
I've heard of it.
I've heard of it. It was a Square Enix little like RPG thing. I don't know. It takes place in like Akihabara and it's supposed to be kind of crazy and fun. I don't know. I've never played it. So we'll find out. I don't know. I may or may not get it. We'll see. I'm not going to get it.
Okay. Well, then I guess we won't find out because I'm not.
Payday 2.
If they can get the multiplayer vibrant on the Switch, that's Payday 2's claim to fame. Is they have a heist mode multiplayer. It was in the first Payday as well, I believe, and that's really all I know that game is known for. It's having a really fun, unique style. It was one of those instances where it was like PUBG, where it was a multiplayer that no one else had.
Wasn't Payday 2 the game where they were like, we'll never do microtransactions. Microtransactions are evil. We love microtransactions. Please give us 75 cents and you can have this special thing. I don't know.
It seems everyone has microtransaction now, so I can't
I'm pretty certain there was a big to-do because they swore there'd never be microtransactions and then they added microtransactions. I think that was Payday. It might be another game completely and I feel and I apologize to Payday for that, but
okay. Well, their feelings may be or may not be hurt. We don't know. I don't know.
They're putting out a mini game for Super Mario Odyssey. There's some DLC for Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle and Pokken Tournament.
A lot of people like the Mario Rabbids game.
I have played a little bit of it, and I enjoyed it enough that it is on my wish list. It's on my list because I'll play it because I thought it sounded so dumb when I saw it, but after I actually played it, it's like, hey, this is actually a lot of fun. So
I've seen Pokken Tournament back on Wii U. I didn't think it looked good, but
no, I didn't think it looked good.
I thought it's a fighting game, and I didn't think it got enough of what it needed to get to be a top tier fighting game.
Right. I mean, that's what I thought. When I first heard about Pokken Tournament, it's like, oh, cool, that's awesome. Pokemon fighting game, and then when I actually saw a Pokken Tournament played, I was like, oh, that's boring.
Yeah, I mean, why get that rehashed when you can get Dragon Ball Fighters as is?
Right, which is not coming to the Switch yet.
No.
Maybe there'll be an announcement someday.
Maybe.
That would be nice. Yeah. They're also getting what's probably Nintendo's very first fan service game. So Nintendo is definitely decided to embrace an older demographic and a more perverted demographic because they're getting a S&K Heroines Tag Team Frenzy, which is the S&K girls and you fight each other in skimpy clothing.
Well, at least they didn't just make it the Dead or Alive beach volleyball and not even make it a fighting game.
That's
just
true.
Be about collecting swimsuits.
Yeah, that is very true. We might be going that way.
So I've heard.
Yeah,
about that game. So I've heard.
I've never finished it. I've never platinumed that game, but
that's supposed to be a hard one to platinum. Because I think you have to get all of them. All the outfits.
You got to get every single one.
They have to all be your friend.
I don't think I've got full achievements on any game ever. I know I've got games that I've got a lot of achievements on, but some of the games I have are those games that where some of the achievements are literally impossible to get because servers are closed down.
Yeah,
I might have full achievements on some like little games that have like 5 or 10 achievements, but I've got a couple of games that have like 300 achievements, and I've got like 160 of them.
Well, the last game I got full achievements on was probably Far Cry Primal.
Yeah. Killed enough eagles and lit enough fires and stabbed enough stuff with
You
spears.
control the eagle and you are one. You don't kill the eagles.
Oh.
Well, there are some eagles you can kill. Mean eagles. There are not very many, though, and they're not. I don't think they're worth an achievement.
Speaking of Far Cry, there's
a
a new Far Cry coming out, isn't
there? There is. There's the one where you fight the people.
The cult?
The Pentecostals. I was going to say. It's the cult one.
The one where you go and fight Scientologists in like Montana or something like that.
Snake handler types.
Pentecostal.
It's I don't know if the Pentecostals do the snake thing. Speaking in tongues is big.
Yeah.
Pentecostal. I had a great grandma who is Pentecostal. I don't recall speaking in tongues to me, but she did yell at me once when I used a knife to cut open a biscuit.
You monster.
I should have just torn the biscuit instead of sawing and leaving crumbs.
You monster.
Yeah. Well.
Wow.
Anyway,
I can't even
I didn't eat any more biscuits in front of her. It's just how it had to be. That's how you solve the problem. Just take the problem away.
There were a couple other games announced. Fee is coming, and Celeste is coming, and Yiz 8 Lacrimosa of Donna. I don't know. Nothing I care about.
Okay.
So, well, hopefully, now the interesting thing is from the insanity that is the online internet community and people who track stats for no bloody reason. According to everything I've read, there has never been Nintendo since they've started doing directs and mini directs have never had a mini direct without having a full scale direct within 20 days. So that's the new giant charge of, there's a direct coming within 20 days. And, Nintendo's fanboys are going kind of nuts with all this Switch stuff lately.
Yeah. That's an interesting statistic. I don't know. I'll just go ahead and I have no thought on whether they'll have one in 20 days or not. I don't know if that proves much of anything. How many have they had? I mean, is the sample size very big?
They normally have a fair number. It's not like they just have one or two a year. I think normally they've been having.
And maybe it may be a corporate strategy to do that for whatever reason.
I could see them having a full-size direct before end of the business fiscal year, which is typically in March, as I recall.
Okay.
So having one in February or at the beginning of March would not surprise me at all. Especially to give big game announcements for the summer release schedule and this and that.
All right.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, I don't have any other video game news, so this would be the part where I guess I just start going over games I've been working on, or mostly it was stuff I played that we could have talked about last time, but there was just no way with year-end review I could dedicate much time on it. So I thought I would start with Halo Wars 2, which, as I had mentioned before, and anyone who's possibly familiar either with it or way back with the original Halo Wars, it's an RTS, real-time strategy game. The first one was put out by Ensemble Studios, and it was a very interesting circumstance because Microsoft closed Ensemble before Halo Wars shipped.
Really?
Yeah. But it was a pretty well-received game. Obviously not like any mainline or any shooter variant of Halo, because RTS fans are very small
niche.
subset.
Yeah, that
it's
is
a small
niche
group.
group.
It's a subset of gamers, and console RTS people is not a demographic that has ever really been cultivated. There are RTS games that have been ported over into consoles, usually with very mixed results. But this was the first Halo Wars, and this Halo Wars 2 were built with console controls in mind. So there's a simplicity to it compared to what you would be used to with all your RTS background.
Yeah.
Or my background. I PC gamed for a very long time. So, and RTSs were one of my favorites. So,
Total Annihilation, baby.
Well, I was not Total Annihilation person. I played it like twice, but the story sort of continues on. For those that aren't really familiar, and I don't want to go too much into Halo mythos, which I'm not strong.
Have that kind of
I'm not strong on Halo. I'm not strong on the Halo mythology. I still haven't finished Halo 5. It's still sitting. I've started it, but it's weird because you're bouncing back and forth between Master Chief and Locke, and no one likes Locke. They want him dead. And so I
think the only Halo game I've ever finished was when we co-opted ODST, which was fun.
Yeah. That's one of my favorites, actually, ODST, even though you don't play as a Spartan.
Yeah.
But in this, there's a whole plot thing where that ship got isolated. You're working from a ship, and you've been dealing with the Covenant War, but the ship gets isolated away from everyone else. And I believe by the end of the first game, spoilers, you don't have the ability to do any sort of faster than light travel. So it's crawling back to Earth space.
Generational.
It's like 30 years out.
It's so, okay, everybody. If we're gonna make this work, we all gotta bang.
Yeah. No, they could do that strategy, but instead they chose.
That's the new game. It's weird. Instead of being a real time strategy game, it became one of those visual love dating sim novels.
It's like Fallout Shelter. It's Halo Shelter.
Yeah. It's Halo Shelter.
Yeah. But instead of electing that path, they chose to use the cryo chambers they had instead. So at this point, it's now, I believe, caught up with the modern Halo era, but you're using all this old tech.
Yeah.
And trying to deal with an aspect of sort of separate from the Covenant. You're dealing with a splinter faction that broke away. There were a lot of really cleverly done commercials that were live action when this game was first announced, involving brutes and like showing a brute trying to be a used car salesman and stuff. It was weird, really weird stuff. And that's because the brutes are the main antagonist in the game. So story's pretty good. Really nice cutscene stuff. The RTS mechanics are good. They felt really smooth. I played on the default difficulty. I only had one mission where I failed and had to redo it. And it does checkpointing, so you don't have to totally restart. There are a lot of achievements if you want to do things on much harder settings and not lose things, do things in set time limits. There are a lot of bonus objectives to really push you. Mm-hmm. If you're one of those RTS people that are like, no, I want it hard. They're like, oh, they'll measure you on all sorts of hard. But it was, anyway, I had a lot of fun with it. I haven't played any multiplayer on it. It was one where I really only wanted it to go through the campaign. I've never done a lot of RTS online. It's always been local LAN RTS or single player.
Every time I've done RTS online where it wasn't like a local LAN RTS, I've apparently come up against one of those guys who has the special stuff because they're doing, like 3,000 clicks a second. Where it doesn't make sense. It doesn't even look like a human's doing stuff because they're barely, their screen's barely even moving. They're just hotkeying so many things that everything's just happening. It's like, how can you even move that fast? That's what it seems like.
The last one I did online was actually a console one, on 360. It was one of the mech themed RTSs, and I did this happened to me once in Warcraft 2. In a LAN party, we had someone, and he basically Zerg rushed me with his initial peon, and I had no defenses yet, and he destroyed my whole town because he sucker punched my peon, and I had no resources, and he destroyed my town hall with his little peon or something.
Yeah.
So I went, and you had like a starter unit, and I was a faction where the initial thing that could found the base had an attack laser. I took it over to theirs and I just destroyed everything. He quit out. He quit out and I won and I got my achievement and I was done. Because I was like, yeah, I beat you, loser. You thought we were actually going to build.
I've done that in Total Annihilation a couple of times.
Sure. You always got to be ready for that. So anyway, that's Halo Wars 2.
I know there was an Xbox game that was a real-time strategy game that let you do voice commands, and that wasn't Halo Wars, was it?
No, you're thinking of Tom Clancy's... it was a Tom Clancy game. Not Ghost Recon. I'll have to think about it.
Okay.
Think about which one that was.
For some reason, I was thinking it was Halo Wars, but the more you were talking about Halo Wars, it's like, I don't think so.
No.
I don't think I ever played Halo Wars. I think I even have a version of it on computer. I think somebody gifted it to me, but I don't know if I've ever played it. I might have played it a little bit.
Another game I worked on was Plants vs. Zombies 2. Have you ever played any of the...
I played the first one. The Plants vs. Zombies, the Garden Warfare?
Yeah.
I played the first one.
And I should clarify, this was Garden Warfare 2, not Plants vs. Zombies 2.
I played Plants vs. Zombies and Plants vs. Zombies 2. Plants vs. Zombies is better because 2 is kind of...
Transaction-y?
Micro-transaction.
Yep, that was the rep. I played Plants vs. Zombies, Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare, and Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2.
I played Garden Warfare, the first one, and it was enjoyable.
Yeah, this is that.
Yeah.
They have a story in it now. I played through the you do campaign as the plants and a campaign as the zombies. It mostly gets you familiar with the modes and stuff. Mm-hmm. They've added a few new characters on both teams, so they're more diverse rosters now.
Yeah.
And I did put in some online matches. So I don't really have a lot to say on it. If you're interested in a third-person shooter, I don't want to say there's a lot of commands and stuff, so I don't want to call it simplistic, but it's not a cover-based shooter, so like Gears is. So if you like a little more deathmatchy style, I mean, they do objective play and all that. It's just different. It's
not Doom run screaming at everything there is ahead of you and just wail and destroy. And
right. It's not overly fast, but it's not overly defensive either.
Yeah.
So it paces itself pretty well. I kind of think of it like a third person Call of Duty. Mm-hmm. Of course, I haven't played Call of Duties in so long. I'm probably wrong on that comparison. But that's how Call of Duty used to be.
I've thought about. I saw a sale on Infinite Warfare. I thought about getting it just for the single player, but the sale wasn't big enough for me.
No, you haven't. A third game I had mentioned, and I think you've played this one, South Park: Stick of Truth.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I've beaten it now as well. So, what were your thoughts overall on South Park?
I really enjoyed Stick of Truth. I thought the jokes were good. I thought the way it played was good. I don't know how much on replayability, because I never did go through and replay it. I kept wanting to replay it with a different class, but I never actually did it. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun little time waster. Yeah, no,
I did almost all the side quests. There are a couple I didn't finish. Like I didn't find all the kindergartners.
I found all the kindergartners, as I recall, because it was one of those games where I was trying to get almost everything done, and I think I ended up looking up the kinder because I was like missing one.
I think I ended with two.
Like I said, it's been several years ago, so I don't remember for sure.
But yeah, so anyway, yeah, it was fun. I thought the way they did the turn-based combat was enjoyable. Mm-hmm. Some people don't like turn-based RPGs. I do. I like both. I like both. So I thought they because they've got the whole, hit the right button at the right time. So it kept you engaged. You had to think while you were doing it. The party compositions mattered. Mm-hmm. I do wish that it had been bigger parties.
Yeah.
I don't, and they do that in Fractured But Whole. It's 4.
It's 4
instead groups of 4. Yeah. Instead of being 2.
Yeah.
So, but overall, yeah. And it had the humor. I don't regularly watch South Park, but sometimes I'll go because they put all their shows online for free. So you can go to southpark.com and catch anything you want.
That's how I haven't watched South Park regularly in, I don't know, like a decade. But every once in a while I've done that. Or when somebody talks about a specific episode that's really big. Because that's what I did on the Sea Shepherd, the dolphin and whale episode, making fun of Sea Shepherd and all those guys. That I went and watched that one because a bunch of people were telling me to on their website and a few others. But
it stands. I feel it stands on its own. Most of the references are gaming references.
Yeah.
So there's stuff references to like anime fighter games. There's a whole thing in Canada which is done up like the old style 8-bit Final Fantasies where you're walking around on the overhead view and everything. So So yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. I looked at the achievement list after I finished, and I was like, no. I mean, all sorts of stuff like be this character while doing this evil thing to this other person sort of stuff. And it's like, you'd have to like do a different playthrough for each one. Some of these things, it'd be grueling. Another game I played and finished that I mentioned, and it was my kind of runner-up game to Wolfenstein 2 for my game of the year, was Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. Mm-hmm. They actually, this week, yesterday, just wrapped up Awesome Games Done Quick, which is the speed running for charity. They ran Resident Evil 7. I couldn't, it was on a school night, as I still like to say, it was on a work night. And they started that one pretty late, so I could only watch part of it. But that one actually got featured as one of the sort of just after prime time runs of someone going through and doing that as fast as possible.
How can you speed run? How speed runny can it get? I mean, it's not like, last year I watched the Doom speed run where you can speed run Doom apparently with the right glitches in like 20 minutes or less.
Yeah. Swallowed my drink wrong. Excuse me. The speed run was within 2 hours, I think. I don't recall because I only caught the beginning part of it. A lot of it is when you don't know where things, like when I was playing through it and I don't know where things are, right. Trying to find this key to get through that. So, there's this puzzle and you find this piece of, the puzzles aren't really puzzles like a puzzle game. It's more like, oh, look, this obvious thing is missing. You need to find that obvious thing.
So it's a Resident Evil game.
Yes.
It's the, hey, look, there's an obvious spot where there's a large gear that should be here, so I should probably go somewhere and find the gear.
Yes. So there's that, and also on from a speedrunning perspective, there are things like there are VHS tapes you can find that will let you play through and learn more about what's going on. You don't have to do those.
Yeah.
They might be helpful to you like the first time through because they'll let you know what's coming up, basically. But because they give you different exposure to the house before you have access because it's much like the first Resident Evil. You're exploring in this case, you're not exploring a big mansion. You just seems like a house upon a house upon a, it's more like, here's a shack and here's a shack and here's a house. And the next thing you know, it's like a military base. It's massive, or so it feels. So, and as I noted on the last episode, I really like how they went first person. It really helped with some of the horror of it. The controls, best feeling controls, I think yet for any. They've gotten progressively better. Resident Evil, I don't think, ever had very good controls.
Oh, no. Resident Evil's controls are... I never finished the original Resident Evil, and it was because the controls just angered me.
That's kind of my issue with Code Veronica, which I got a remaster of, and I couldn't get through it. I was just getting too frustrated. Bad camera angles and all that. I did better when you were just mobile turrets at that point. You go forward and plant and shoot.
The ones we played co-op, those had much better controls.
Yeah.
And were more fun.
Yeah,
I don't ever remember which one that was.
We probably did 5. The issue with those was Resident Evil was at that point where I call it. That's why my turret references. You're like a little bastion. You always had to stop before you could shoot. You couldn't run and gun.
Yeah.
Now you can. Might not be smart because you're still trying to hit things in the glowy spots.
You got to hit the glowy spot. And by the way, we only gave you 5 rounds. You got 4 glowy spots.
And it's just good. It's really atmospheric and it's got good dialogue and it's well written, so I had a lot of fun with it.
Good. I've heard a lot of good things about it.
Yeah, it's good. And then Quantum Break, which, as I noted at the start of the episode, I'd finally finished up. That's a mix. I think that the gameplay mechanics are interesting. Interesting in a fun way. You get a lot of time manipulation stuff. It feels very different than most other games I've played. I've played a couple other games like Time Shift where I do have time control in some regards. And so, it's the sort of mechanics where it'd be like, I don't think this would ever work in multiplayer, but in single player, let's go at it and let's have some fun.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of games that have fun things like that in single player that you can work out that would never work in multiplayer.
Yeah, there was one that had an interesting multiplayer mode that had some stuff like that. I can't remember the name of the game though. It's sort of a Russian themed, like, I don't know if it's Chernobyl Fallout gave time. I don't know. It was weird. It was a good campaign.
Kind of like I used to play this game called DEF CON, which is basically war games, just the nuclear launch attack part of war games, and it looked like the thing from war games, but it had a multiplayer component, but it also has a time acceleration component, so you could accelerate time.
Okay.
And that's what the multiplayer always ended up in, because to accelerate time, everybody had to agree to accelerate time to the same amount, and it would accelerate time to the time wanted for the agreed to by the slowest person. So if everybody's got said, oh, we want ×5 acceleration, and one guy's on ×1, you will be on ×1 until that guy decides he wants to go higher. And there were games I played where I'm pretty certain the guy left it on ×1 because he figured eventually everyone would quit out and he would win.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that's mean. But anyway, so gameplay wise, it was fun. I thought the story was pretty good as well. The movies between the acts, they had live action movie stuff. Probably would have dropped that. It's just, the concept was okay. It feels pretty low budget, even though they got some names. Yeah. Like Littlefinger, of course, is the big one. They got another guy who I had his name and I don't remember it. I always think of him because he plays like the chief of police on the Amazon show Bosch. And so I've seen him in a number of things. They had some good actors. Some of the performances weren't so good. It's all tied in really well. So the stuff that happens in the movie, you can skip the movies, so you don't have to watch them. But the stuff that happens in the movies is not like rehashed in the game.
That's good.
You don't re-experience it in game.
But does it affect?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and you make basically at the end of every act, generally speaking, you play one character, you're the protagonist. But sometimes you take Littlefinger. I'm going to kill on Littlefinger. You're going to take Littlefinger at the interludes, and because he has time powers as well. That's the plot is he invites you. I mean, the basics without any spoilers are he invites you to help with an experiment because he's having trouble convincing your brother, who is a scientist, and you are a who knows what. A journalist, I think.
You're a janitor.
I've covered wars, so he wants you to help run the experiment and help, I guess, convince your brother that it's ready. Well, it doesn't work right. So you end up getting time powers, and Littlefinger ends up getting time powers. However, you were like in a residual effect hit with this time stuff. He was in the machine. So his whole issue is he comes out of it basically, you don't see him come out of it. All of a sudden you see an older version of him later who's been around the whole time while his, paradox, his younger self has existed. And it's like, he's the bad guy now. And the issue for him is he says he's gone and he's seen the end of time. So he's trying to save humanity from the end of time. And you are trying to stop him because you think that you can change whatever has happened. And he thinks anything you've seen cannot be so it deals with that whole issue with people think about time and the theories of everything's predicated on the path of time. Time travel's pointless beyond viewing things because you can't ever really change anything. Yeah. Because it's not how time works. And other people think, oh yeah, you can make a difference. And then it deals with things like that, or things like maybe you can't change the past, but anything that hasn't happened yet in the stream can be changed. Right. So it's got all that stuff going on. So at the end of every act, you are as Littlefinger, and because of the things that are happening in the game, you have to make between two choices. Those choices influence the movie. Those choices also influence the game, including what enemies you may fight, who may be helping you versus who may be hurting you, the community's response, all of that. So overall, it's a decent game. I'd rather have an Alan Wake sequel than another Quantum Break sequel. I'm not aware of either game getting a sequel.
No.
It was made by the Alan Wake
You can't even play Alan Wake anymore.
You can't even get a disc.
Yeah, if you had a disc, you can play it.
Yeah,
that's about it.
I might have a disc but only for 360.
I don't. I have it on Steam.
Yeah. Well, did you have any games you wanted to cover?
No. I played spreadsheet games and I talked about it last time.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure there's not people who want to deep dive into such a massively niche game. If there is, let us know. I can sit down and talk about Rule the Waves for a long time. But it's not something I assume very many people are super interested in.
Oh, well. Well, next time. Yes.
We'll include a link. We have set up a Discord. Just if people want to chat with us.
Discord, yes.
There's a few people in it. Us, a couple of our guest hosts have been in it. It's mainly somewhere where we just throw memes and jokes and stuff.
Yeah.
But we'll include a link in the show notes for it.
It's not as clean as podcast, though. So
no,
FYI.
no. I am not. I warn you now, in the Discord, my filter is at 50% as opposed to here where my filter's at 95%. And as opposed to my real life where I don't have a filter.
Yeah. We filter. We filter for the iTunes reviews. And next episode, assuming it doesn't fall through, we do plan to have a guest host on, and we will probably have most of the episode focused on competitive pinball. So be prepared for that. Of course, we were pretty video game heavy this time because I had a lot of video games to talk about.
Yep.
So in addition to all those links we mentioned, and including to the t-shirt contest, so go ahead and enter if you want a chance to win one. You can always reach out to us, eclecticgamerspodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/eclecticgamerspodcast.
We're also available on Twitter and Instagram, both as eclectic_gamers.
And, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Bye.